20 years old, and right now, I'm deep in the trenches of finals week at college, where I'm studying finance. It's a brutal major, but I've always had a knack for numbers. As I sit here in my cramped dorm room, surrounded by towering textbooks and a graveyard of empty coffee cups, I can't help but think about my upcoming birthday. My family's planning to celebrate it once I finally conquer these exams. However, family celebrations always leave a bitter taste in my mouth, because growing up, I always felt like the black sheep. My older sister Brittany, who's 25 now, has always been the golden child, the one my parents absolutely doted on. I was just there, an afterthought. I vividly remember this one time when I was 8. It was Brittany's 13th birthday, and my parents threw her this massive, extravagant party. There was a huge bouncy castle that practically swallowed the backyard, a cheesy magician pulling endless rabbits out of hats, and a towering cake that looked bigger than I was. I was so incredibly excited, naively thinking my birthday would be just as grand. But when my birthday rolled around a few months later, all I got was a small, pathetic cake from the grocery store and a flimsy pair of socks. I tried desperately not to cry, but the tears welled up and spilled down my cheeks anyway. My mom just patted my head dismissively and said, "Don't be so dramatic, Ashley. It's just a birthday." That's when I first truly realized I was different, less important somehow. As I grew older, that gnawing feeling of being second best only intensified. Brittany got the newest iPhone every single year, while I begrudgingly inherited her old, outdated hand-me-downs. She flaunted designer clothes, while I was stuck with her cast-offs. When she triumphantly graduated high school, my parents bought her a shiny new car, a cherry red convertible no less. When I graduated, all I received was a measly $25 gift card to the local bookstore. My grandmother, though, she was different, a beacon of warmth in a cold house. She always treated me like I was truly special. When I excitedly told her I wanted to study finance, her face lit up. "You've got a good head on your shoulders, Ashley," she'd said with a twinkle in her eye. "You'll go far." And now she's insisted on arranging my 20th birthday celebration. She even gave my parents several $1,000s to make it happen. I was utterly shocked when I heard about it. My parents usually brushed off my birthdays like they were insignificant inconveniences, but they didn't dare argue with Grandma. They just snatched the money and curtly told me to focus on my exams. I couldn't help but overhear Brittany throwing a monumental fit about it. "Why does she get a big party, she whined, her voice dripping with jealousy. "I could really use that money for that trip to Europe I've been wanting to take." Grandma shut her down quick, her voice like steel. "Hush now, Brittany. Everyone spoils you as it is. Didn't I just give you 10 grand for rent, and you're still living at home?" Brittany went silent after that, a sullen look on her face. I couldn't help but feel a tiny sliver of smug satisfaction. So here I am, cramming for my last exam. It's tomorrow, and then I'm finally free. Free from the suffocating pressure of academia, and more importantly, free to celebrate my birthday. Free to feel special for once. The next day, I walked out of my last exam, feeling like a colossal weight had been lifted off my weary shoulders. My classmates were chattering excitedly about their upcoming summer plans, but all I could think about was my impending birthday celebration. As I made my way back to my lonely dorm, my phone buzzed incessantly with messages. My college friends, bless their hearts, were wishing me an early happy birthday, knowing I'd be heading home soon. It felt good to be remembered, even if it was just by people I'd known for a couple of short years. "Happy almost birthday," my roommate Jessica called out cheerfully as I entered our cramped shared space. "You ready for the big family shindig?" I nodded, trying to muster up some semblance of enthusiasm. "Yeah, should be interesting." Jessica raised a skeptical eyebrow. "You don't sound too excited. Everything okay?" I sighed, flopping dramatically onto my narrow bed. "It's just my family. They're not exactly the warm and fuzzy type, you know? Especially when it comes to me." "But your grandma organized this whole thing, right?" Jessica pointed out reasonably. "That's got to count for something." "True," I admitted, a flicker of hope igniting within me. "Grandma's always been different. She actually seems to like me." As I haphazardly packed my worn backpack for the trip home, I couldn't shake off a nagging feeling in the pit of my stomach. It was a turbulent mix of hope that for once my birthday would be truly special, and a deep, unsettling dread that somehow it would all go horribly wrong. The long bus ride home felt even longer than usual, my mind relentlessly wandering to what awaited me. Would the house be festively decorated? Would there be a decent cake? Would my parents actually look happy to see me? As I trudged up the familiar driveway, I took a deep, steadying breath. The house looked normal. No colorful balloons bobbing in the breeze, no cheerful streamers adorning the porch, nothing to indicate a celebration was imminent. But maybe they're keeping it all inside, I thought optimistically, desperately trying to cling to a sliver of positivity. I pushed open the front door, calling out, "Mom, Dad, I'm home!" The house was eerily quiet. Too quiet for a place that was supposedly prepping for a party. I frowned, dropping my heavy backpack unceremoniously by the door, and making my way to the dimly lit living room. My parents were there, sitting stiffly on the couch, looking oddly uncomfortable, almost guilty. There was absolutely no sign of any party preparations. Hi, I said, confusion and a growing sense of unease creeping into my voice. Where's all the, birthday stuff? My mom and dad exchanged a furtive glance that made my heart plummet like a lead weight. About that, Ashley, my dad started, his voice strangely detached. We decided not to organize your birthday party. I blinked, sure I had misheard him. What? But Grandma gave you money for it? I stammered, my voice trembling slightly. We gave the money to Brittany for her trip, my mom cut in smoothly, avoiding my gaze. She and her boyfriend flew to Hawaii a couple of days ago. The callous words hit me like a physical blow, knocking the air out of my lungs. I felt my eyes start to sting with the familiar, unwelcome prickle of tears. You what? But it was for my birthday. Grandma gave it to you for my birthday. My dad shrugged dismissively, not meeting my devastated eyes. Brittany needed a vacation, you understand, don't you? I couldn't believe the sheer audacity of what I was hearing. Understand? No, Dad, I absolutely do not understand. It was supposed to be my birthday party. I invited people. What am I supposed to tell them? We've already taken care of that, my mom said, her tone cold and dismissive. We called everyone and told them you were having problems with college and that the party was canceled. I stood there, the initial shock quickly giving way to a burning, white-hot anger. You lied to them about me? How could you do this? My dad's face hardened into a familiar mask of disapproval. That's enough, Ashley. You need to learn to obey us and stop being so selfish. Selfish? I almost screamed the word, my voice cracking with disbelief and pain. How am I being selfish? It was my birthday, my party. Just then, the front door creaked open. I turned, desperately hoping it was Brittany, back early and miraculously feeling guilty for once. Instead, I saw my grandmother step inside, her sharp eyes immediately narrowing as she took in the tense scene. What in God's name is going on here? She demanded, her voice dangerously sharp. Where's the party? I looked at my parents, waiting with a morbid sense of anticipation to see how they'd try to weasel their way out of this. They hesitated, fumbling for pathetic words. In that moment, something inside me finally snapped. There is no party, Grandma, I said, my voice shaking with barely suppressed fury. They gave the money you sent to Brittany for a trip to Hawaii instead. The look on my grandmother's face was one I had never witnessed before. It was a terrifying mix of fury and profound disappointment, and it was all directed at my utterly spineless parents. Is this true? She demanded, her voice quivering with rage. My parents couldn't even meet her piercing gaze. Their shameful silence was all the confirmation she needed. Grandma turned to me, her stern expression softening with a wave of compassion. Ashley, dear, she said gently but firmly, go pack your things. You're coming with me. I didn't need to be told twice. As I rushed upstairs to throw some clothes haphazardly into my backpack, I could clearly hear my grandmother's voice, low and dangerously angry, as she finally unleashed her fury on my utterly deserving parents. I couldn't make out the exact words, but the tone was unmistakable. When I came back downstairs, Grandma was waiting by the door, her face set in a grim line. Without a single word to my stunned parents, We left the house and got into her luxurious car. As we drove away, the dam finally broke, and I let the tears flow freely. 20 long years of feeling unloved and unwanted came pouring out in a torrent of grief. Grandma reached over and squeezed my trembling hand. "Don't you worry, dear," she said, her voice surprisingly gentle but firm. "We'll sort this out. You deserve so much better than this, and it's high time someone finally showed you that." Grandma drove us to her magnificent 2-story home nestled on the peaceful outskirts of town. As we pulled into the long, winding driveway, she turned to me with a determined glint in her eyes. "This might not be the party you were expecting, Ashley," she said with a small, comforting smile, "but we're going to celebrate your birthday properly." Once inside her warm and inviting home, Grandma immediately got on her phone. I watched in utter amazement as she ordered what sounded like enough delicious food to feed a small army, all for rush delivery. "I hope you're hungry," she said with a mischievous wink as she hung up. "We've got quite a feast coming our way." As we waited for the culinary delights to arrive, Grandma bustled around her spacious kitchen, pulling out her finest china and gleaming silverware. I offered to help, but she gently shooed me away. "It's your birthday, dear," she insisted, her eyes full of genuine affection. "You just relax." So I sat at her large kitchen table, watching her work with a sense of bewildered gratitude. After a few minutes of comfortable silence, I couldn't hold back the question that had been gnawing at my soul for years. "Grandma," I started, my voice small and hesitant. Why don't they love me?" She paused in her preparations, turning to face me with a profoundly sad look in her kind eyes. For a long moment, she seemed to be wrestling with something deep within her. Then she sighed softly and sat down across from me, reaching out to gently take my hand in hers. "Oh, Ashley," she said, her voice filled with a lifetime of unspoken understanding. "I suppose it's time you knew the truth." My heart started racing, a knot of apprehension tightening in my chest. The truth about what? Grandma took a deep, steadying breath. "Your parents? They didn't want you to be born." The devastating words hit me like a physical blow. I felt the air leave my lungs as if I'd been punched. "What?" They thought Brittany was enough," Grandma continued, her voice gentle but firm. "But I convinced them to have you. Your mother, she had a very difficult pregnancy and the birth was complicated. She almost died." I felt fresh tears welling up in my eyes, a wave of guilt washing over me. So it's my fault?" "No," Grandma said forcefully, her grip on my hand tightening. "No, Ashley, it's not your fault at all. These things happen sometimes, but your mother, she tried to avoid you after that. And your father and Brittany, they followed her lead." I sat there utterly stunned, the pieces of a lifelong puzzle finally clicking into place, forming a heartbreaking picture. All these years, I'd known instinctively that something was terribly wrong, but I had never, in my wildest nightmares, imagined this level of rejection. Just then, the doorbell rang, announcing the arrival of our much-anticipated food. As Grandma went to get it, I sat there, numbly trying to process the earth-shattering revelation I had just received. The next few hours passed in a surreal blur. Grandma and I devoured a ridiculous amount of delicious food, and she regaled me with hilarious and heartwarming stories from her youth, somehow managing to make me laugh despite the crushing weight in my heart. As the night wore on, I found myself slowly relaxing, truly enjoying my birthday for the first time in what felt like an eternity. As we were finishing up the last decadent slices of cake, Grandma's phone rang. She glanced at the caller ID, then back at me with a mischievous glint in her eye. "It's your sister," she said, a hint of amusement in her voice. "Shall we see what she has to say?" I nodded, a morbid curiosity getting the better of me. Grandma put the phone on speaker. "Hello?" Brittany's voice came through, sounding panicked and shrill. "Grandma, why is my credit card blocked? What's going on?" Grandma's voice was cool and collected when she replied, "Hello, Brittany. I see you finally discovered there are consequences for your actions." "What? What actions? What are you even talking about?" Brittany's voice was rising in pitch, bordering on hysteria. Your behavior and that of your parents has been absolutely shameful, Grandma said firmly, her voice like polished steel. Taking money meant for your sister's birthday for your own selfish desires. I am deeply disappointed in all of you. There was a tense pause, then Brittany's angry voice came back, laced with resentment. Oh, come on, Grandma. Mom and Dad did the right thing giving me that money. Ashley doesn't need some big extravagant party. You're just a crazy old woman and… That's quite enough, Grandma cut her off, her voice like a whip crack. I've heard all I need to hear. And with that, she decisively hung up the phone. I stared at her, wide-eyed and speechless. Grandma, did you really block her card? She nodded, a satisfied smile gracing her lips. I did, and your parents' accounts too. It's high time they learned to stand on their own 2 feet. As if on cue, the phone started ringing again. This time, the caller ID clearly showed my parents' number. Grandma completely ignored it, turning back to me as if nothing extraordinary had just happened. Now then, she said cheerfully, as if we hadn't just dropped a financial bombshell on my entire immediate family. How about we plan out the rest of your birthday week? The following days I spent with Grandma were like a beautiful dream, a stark and welcome contrast to the lifelong nightmare that had been my existence. For the first time in my 20 years, I felt truly loved, truly valued, and truly appreciated for exactly who I was. We went on shopping sprees, visited fascinating museums, and simply enjoyed each other's comforting company. But as with all good things, our time together eventually had to come to an end. And soon it was time for me to return to my lonely dorm and face the daunting prospect of summer classes. As I wearily unpacked my bags in my small, impersonal dorm room, my phone buzzed incessantly. I glanced at it, seeing a flood of angry notifications, missed calls, and vitriolic messages from my parents and Brittany. With a deep, weary sigh, I sat heavily on my bed and started scrolling through the digital onslaught. The first message was from my mom. Ashley, you need to talk to your grandmother right now. This is completely unacceptable. Then came my dad's equally infuriated demand. We are your parents. You owe us your loyalty. Make her unblock our accounts immediately. Brittany's messages were even more venomous, filled with hateful accusations. You backstabbing little brat. Is this what you wanted? To ruin everything for us? We're stuck in Hawaii because of you. Fix this now. I felt my hands trembling uncontrollably as I read through their self-pitying and entitled demands. The sheer audacity they possessed to demand my help after the years of emotional neglect, and their latest betrayal was mind-boggling. I took a deep, steadying breath and typed out a concise response. This is between you and Grandma. I will not get involved. Please do not contact me about this again. I hit send and then promptly blocked all their numbers. But the fragile peace didn't last long. They started calling from different, unknown numbers, leaving increasingly nasty voicemails filled with desperate demands and cruel insults. During one particularly vicious call that I mistakenly answered, my mother's venomous words cut me deeper than any physical wound. You ungrateful little trash, she spat, her voice dripping with pure hatred. I should have never given birth to you. I should have had an abortion instead. That was the absolute last straw. I ended the call and blocked every single number they tried to reach me from. Hot tears streamed down my face as I curled up in a fetal position on my bed, my mother's horrifying words echoing relentlessly in my mind. Over the next few weeks, I threw myself headfirst into my studies, desperately trying to drown out the gnawing pain and the lingering sting of their cruel words. Over the next few weeks, I threw myself headfirst into my studies, desperately trying to drown out the gnawing pain and the lingering sting of their rejection with the demanding workload of textbooks and assignments. Occasionally, I would call Grandma, seeking solace and strength in her calm, confident voice. How are you holding up, dear? She'd ask, her tone always warm and genuinely concerned. I'm okay, Grandma, I'd reply, trying to sound much stronger and more composed than I actually felt. Just focusing on my classes. That's my girl, she'd say, pride evident in her voice. Remember, you're stronger than you know. Don't ever let them get to you. Her unwavering words were a soothing balm to my wounded spirit. While my own parents and sister had revealed their true, ugly colors, Grandma had become my steadfast rock, my unexpected safe harbor in this turbulent storm. It was a crisp autumn day, about 2 months after the disastrous birthday fiasco. I was walking across the bustling college campus, my mind completely preoccupied with an upcoming grueling finance exam, when I suddenly heard someone call my name. "Sarah!" I turned instinctively and froze in my tracks. There, jogging towards me with a dazzling, almost too perfect smile, was Blake, my sister Brittany's now ex-boyfriend. The very same Blake who had been luxuriating in Hawaii, courtesy of my stolen birthday money. He was as conventionally handsome as ever, and I couldn't help but notice the envious glances from other girls as he confidently approached. Before I could even formulate a coherent thought, he swept me into a surprisingly tight hug. I stood there, stiff and utterly bewildered, as he pulled away, still wearing that practiced, charming grin. "Blake, what in the world are you doing here?" I managed to stammer out, acutely aware of the curious stares we were attracting. "I was really hoping I'd run into you," he said, his voice smooth and velvety, like expensive silk. "Can we talk? There's a coffee shop just off campus." Every single instinct within me screamed to say no, to run in the opposite direction as fast as my legs could carry me. But against my better judgment, a morbid curiosity, a desperate need to understand the bizarre turn of events, got the better of me. "Okay," I agreed hesitantly, "but I can't stay long." As we settled into a quiet, secluded corner of the bustling coffee shop, Blake leaned forward, his usual easygoing expression suddenly shifting to one of intense seriousness. "Sarah," he began, his gaze unwavering, "I need to tell you something incredibly important." I braced myself, fully expecting some convoluted message from my manipulative family. What he said next, however, caught me completely and utterly off guard. "I want to date you," he blurted out, reaching across the small table to take my hand in his. "I'm going to leave Brittany for you." I stared at him, my mouth literally agape, completely and utterly speechless. "What, Blake, what on earth are you talking about? You're with my sister." He shook his head vehemently, his intense eyes never leaving mine. "I've been in love with you for a long time, Sarah. I was only dating Brittany to be close to you. I know it sounds absolutely crazy, but it's the honest truth. Ma'am." As he spoke his unbelievable words, my mind raced, trying desperately to make sense of this utterly nonsensical situation. Blake had never shown even the slightest flicker of romantic interest in me before. In fact, he had always seemed to barely even register my existence whenever he was around Brittany. Something incredibly fishy was definitely going on here. I decided to play along, to see just how deep this bizarre rabbit hole went. Forcing a shy, hesitant smile, I said, "Wow, Blake, that's really sweet. I had absolutely no idea you felt that way." His face immediately lit up, clearly encouraged by my carefully crafted response. "Really? So, what do you think? Would you give us a chance?" I pretended to thoughtfully consider his outrageous proposition, then said slowly, "This is, a lot to take in. Can I have some time to think about it? Maybe we could meet again, in a week?" "Of course," Blake agreed eagerly, his eyes shining with what I could only assume was feigned adoration. "Take all the time you need, Sarah. I'll wait for you." After he finally left, I remained at the coffee shop, slowly sipping my now cold coffee, turning the utterly bizarre encounter over and over in my mind. I couldn't shake the persistent feeling that this sudden, dramatic declaration of love was somehow inextricably connected to my grandmother's decisive decision to financially cut off my toxic family. But how? And what exactly did Blake hope to gain from this incredibly transparent charade? I had barely stepped out of the coffee shop, my head still reeling from Blake's unbelievable confession, when my phone buzzed insistently in my pocket. My sister Brittany's name flashed angrily on the screen. With a deep, weary sigh, I reluctantly answered. "You backstabbing little tramp!" Brittany's voice shrieked through the speaker, the sheer volume making me wince. "How could you do this to me?" I instinctively pulled the phone away from my ear, my patience finally snapping after weeks of their relentless harassment. "Brittany, what the hell are you talking about? Don't play dumb with me, you pathetic excuse for a sister." My own voice was shaking with a potent mix of anger and disbelief. You home-wrecking? Before she could spew any more of her venomous accusations, I cut her off, my voice cold and hard. Shut up right now and actually explain what's going on, or I'm hanging up. There was a brief moment of stunned silence on the other end before Brittany finally spoke again, her voice trembling with a raw, unadulterated rage. Blake just dumped me. He said he's going to date you instead. How could you? I felt like I'd been physically punched in the gut, the unexpectedness of her words leaving me momentarily breathless. What, Brittany? I swear I had absolutely no idea. Oh, don't act all innocent, she spat, her voice dripping with bitter sarcasm. I bet you're absolutely thrilled about this, aren't you? Well, guess what, little sister? He's only after you for Grandma's money. My mind reeled, trying to process this latest shocking revelation. Grandma's money? What on earth are you talking about? Brittany let out a harsh, humorless laugh. Oh, you don't know? Well, let me fill you in, little sister. Grandma's cutting Mom, Dad, and me completely out of her will. She's leaving everything to you. I leaned heavily against a nearby brick wall, feeling suddenly dizzy and disoriented. But why would she do that? Because she finally found out about Mom and Dad's brilliant little plan, Brittany said, her voice thick with resentment and self-pity. They actually filed to have her declared mentally incompetent so they could seize control of all her assets. But the old bat somehow caught wind of it. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. They what? You heard me, Ashley, Brittany sneered. And now we're all completely cut off. Except for you, of course, the perfect little angel. Suddenly, the final, horrifying pieces of the puzzle clicked into place. So that was why Blake had suddenly declared his undying love for me. It was all about Grandma's money. Bingo, Brittany confirmed my unspoken realization, her voice dripping with venom. Give the girl a prize. God, that vile old woman. I hope she... Don't you dare finish that sentence, Brittany, I cut her off, my own voice dangerously cold. I honestly don't know who is worse in this utterly disgusting situation. You and our pathetic parents for trying to steal from Grandma, or Blake for being such a transparently vile gold-digging snake, Brittany gasped, genuinely shocked by my uncharacteristic outburst. How dare you? No, Brittany, I shot back, my voice trembling with righteous fury. How dare all of you? You're all absolutely despicable. I don't ever want to talk to you again, Brittany. Don't you ever call me again. With a trembling hand, I hung up the phone, hot tears pricking at my eyes, a potent cocktail of anger and deep hurt threatening to completely overwhelm me. How could my own family be so utterly cruel, so breathtakingly greedy? With shaking hands, I quickly dialed Grandma's number. She answered almost immediately, her voice a comforting balm in the midst of my emotional turmoil. Ashley, dear, is everything all right? I took a deep, shuddering breath. Grandma, I just found out about, well, everything. The inheritance. Mom and Dad trying to declare you incompetent. Is it true? There was a brief pregnant pause on the other end, and then surprisingly, Grandma chuckled softly. Oh, my dear, I was wondering when you'd finally hear about all that ridiculous drama. Yes, it's all true. She then proceeded to recount the entire unbelievable tale, her voice filled with a fascinating mix of amusement and profound disappointment. You should have seen their faces when the court commission showed up at my front door. I invited them in for tea, answered all their silly little questions, and even did a few rather challenging Sudoku puzzles to thoroughly prove my complete mental acuity. I couldn't help but smile weakly, picturing the utterly bewildered expressions on my parents' faces. So, what happened? Well, Grandma continued, they left quite satisfied that I was of perfectly sound mind, of course. Your parents' utterly ridiculous claim was promptly rejected. After that, well, I had absolutely no other choice but to protect my assets. And more importantly, you, from their insatiable greed. I've left them the house, but the rest, well, that's all going to you, my dear. I felt completely overwhelmed by her unwavering love and support. Grandma, I don't even know what to say. You don't have to say a single word, Ashley, she replied gently. Just promise me you'll use it wisely. I want you to take over the company one day, to build on everything I've created. "I promise you, Grandma," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I won't ever let you down." After that life-altering conversation, I threw myself into my studies with a renewed sense of purpose and fierce determination. My parents and Brittany, if I could even bring myself to call them that anymore, became complete strangers to me. I resolutely blocked all their numbers, completely ignoring their increasingly desperate and manipulative attempts to reach out. They had finally shown their true ugly colors, and I wanted absolutely nothing more to do with them. A week after my utterly bizarre encounter with Blake, he actually showed up again, exactly as he had promised. However, his usual confident, almost arrogant smile faltered noticeably when he saw the cold, hard look in my eyes. "Sarah," he began smoothly, reaching out to take my hand once more. I recoiled as if burned, pulling my hand away sharply. "Save it, Blake," I spat, my voice filled with undisguised contempt. "I know all about your pathetic little scheme. You and my sister absolutely deserve each other. You're both equally vile and disgustingly mercenary." His carefully constructed facade crumbled instantly, revealing the ugly desperation beneath. "You're making a huge mistake, Sarah," he sneered, his voice suddenly nasty. "You're a complete fool to refuse a guy like me." I couldn't help but laugh, a harsh, mirthless sound. "A guy like you? You mean a pathetic gold digger with absolutely no moral compass whatsoever? No thanks, Blake. I think I'll definitely pass." As he stormed off in a huff, I felt yet another heavy weight lift from my weary shoulders. I was finally free. Free from their manipulative lies, free from the constant feeling of utter inadequacy that had plagued me for so long. Over the next few precious months, Grandma took me completely under her wing, patiently teaching me all the intricate ins and outs of running a successful, multi-million-dollar company. We spent countless weekends poring over complex financial reports, engaging in stimulating discussions about intricate business strategies, and meticulously planning for a bright and independent future. "You have a remarkably sharp mind for business, Sarah," she would often say, her eyes beaming with genuine pride. "You are going to do absolutely great things." For the first time in my life, I finally felt truly valued, truly loved, and truly seen for who I was. The deep pain of losing my toxic parents and equally awful sister still lingered, a dull ache in my heart, but it was gradually being overshadowed by the burgeoning joy of finally finding my own place in the world, a place where I was not only accepted, but truly cherished. Valuable lesson. This story powerfully illustrates the importance of recognizing and valuing your own worth, regardless of how others, especially family, may treat you. It highlights the strength that can be found in unexpected places and the profound impact of genuine love and support. Ultimately, it emphasizes that true family is not always defined by blood, but by those who truly see, value, and believe in you. Don't be afraid to create your own chosen family and to walk away from toxic relationships, no matter how difficult it may seem. Your well-being and happiness are paramount. What are your thoughts on Sarah's journey? Have you ever experienced a similar situation? Share your comments below. And if you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe to our channel for more compelling narratives.